All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. We've got the NIA boys here, Trung Phan, me Master Flex himself, and Jack Butcher, founder of Visualize Value, and I'm Bilal Zaidi, as always, as well. All right, boys, we've got a packed agenda. It's the three of us back in the game. No guest this week. The gang is back, and as we said last week, it's been a year, so we're actually going to do a little bit of a review towards the end of the episode, chat a little bit about what's been going like for the year. But to tell people what we're talking about today, STEPN, Move2Earn. All right, this is true edge of the internet stuff. We're going to talk about how to get paid to go for a walk your dog, walk with your missus or your husband, or just go for a run, how you can earn money from that and why it might not be as good as it sounds. Then we're going to talk about Moonbirds NFTs. Jack is going to break that down for us. That was a really successful launch in the last week or so. We're going to break that down. And then Trung's going to talk about why CNN Plus is doomed already.
You know what? I might sub that out because Netflix just fell 23%. It lost subscribers for the first time ever. We should combine those two because they're both. All right,
we'll talk about Netflix and CNN because it's kind of related subscription.
It's kind of, but listen, we're not going to overdo it. Hey, I got to say one thing, guys. So hasn't been the three of us for almost more than a month, right? So I have a couple questions that I think our listeners will appreciate because we get comments both ways. How do you guys feel about guests versus not guests? So I would love your opinions. Go forth.
Go on, Jack. After you.
I think it's good. I think we definitely shouldn't do multiple back to back. But Celia listens every week, and she actually has, like, she always says, "I wish you didn't bring a guest on." But after she listens to the episode, she's like, "No, it's actually pretty good."
Right?
Yeah. It's not like, I think what we've done pretty well, at least from what I've heard, is like, they're not your typical, like, hey, tee me up for these talking points. I want to come on and shill my bags or my, my project that I'm putting out. So I think we've done a good job with guests, but probably should be, sub 10%, 15% of our total episodes.
Well, the guests have also been amazing. So let's just put it out there.
Yeah, that's true.
Brett Harrison, Majoules, our boy Nick Mijuli, and Board Elon. 3 in a row, and then Alex stepped in for Jack, obviously. But yeah, I agree. I think I prefer just the three of us. Also because it gives each of us more airtime. Because you have to be a lot more respectful of the guest time, right? Understandably, if they come on,
whereas with us,
I'm more than happy drowning you guys out for 90 minutes, right? But if there's a guest there, we're gonna have to let the individual talk. No, I think to Jack's initial point, having the back to back is not ideal.
Yeah.
It ended up that way.
Yeah, and just for people's, like, a lot of those, that wasn't completely planned. I think we were all happy to do all of those, everyone we had on, but it just happened to be the way things got scheduled. They were like back to back in 1 week. Jack couldn't join, but anyway,
we loved it. Yeah, we loved having the guest, but the cadence, to Bilal's point, is it was just bad planning on our part.
Yeah. But either way, good to be back. And to answer your original question, Trung, I also kind of agree. I do think the way we've done it has been quite decent. And I think basically it comes down to how good the guests are is kind of the summary. And I think we've kind of between us have said we need a very high standard of the sort of people we bring on. And in most cases, I think that's worked out pretty well. And people seem to like it. So I think we'll still do them in the future. But I like the kind of three-way chat. And like having the fourth person, and we're still keeping our normal format and then bringing them on to talk about their stuff as well. I think it kind of is a unique way of doing it. So yeah, boys, let's get on with the show then. I just got back from Florida, as you guys know. That was wild, man. Have you guys spent much time in Florida? It is real.
I haven't been there in ages.
So, and just to clarify, this is not like Miami, Florida. I was in like Alabama, Florida, which is, I didn't know that was a thing. It's like 20 minutes from Alabama. And there was a tornado the night before we left. And I felt like I was on the Titanic, bro. It was like every second or two was like lightning thunder. I wasn't sure I was making it back.
Wait, anyway, why were you in Alabama again? I actually never understood that. Okay,
for a wedding, yeah. But anyway... but good to be back. Got my tree in the background. So let's get on with it. STEPN. Boys, have you guys heard of this, first of all, before I try to explain what the hell it is?
I've seen a few screenshots posted here and there, but I have not done any digging at all.
I know nothing about it similarly, so I'm happy for you to just drop mad knowledge on us.
Yeah, well, what I'd say is there's a few things I read through that I'll also share in the show notes so people can check that out. Our boy Nat Eliasson, who's a great writer, he's got a good crypto newsletter nowadays. He did a whole deep dive on it. It's like half an hour's worth of reading. And there are a couple other kind of threads that I read through. So we're not going to go through every single thing because we don't have time to go through all of that. But the kind of high level of it is it's a Web3 running app, right? That's the tagline. It's built on Solana. We'll get on to why in a second. And they're using this phrase, move to earn. So this is in contrast to play to earn, which we've heard of with Axie Infinity and other things like that. But the headline is a lot of people are already using this. They're earning $30 to $50 a day just for going for a walk. Sometimes all the way up to, I saw Nat mention $400 a day. I think because he's got multiple like shoes or whatever, right? So there's a whole gaming element to it, which is kind of ridiculous. If you were able to sustain that, that is more money than most people make, right? So again, you're not making this in dollars, you're making it in their native currency called GST. So we're not going to explain exactly how every single thing works, but the high level is you download the app, you have to have an activation code, which at the moment is kind of hard to get. You have to go in their Discord. I'm still waiting for one. So if anyone here is playing around with it, feel free to DM me with one of those. You create a wallet, you send Sol to the wallet, like Solana to the wallet, and then you buy a pair of sneakers or trainers, as we call it. And from that, it's basically like an NFT, I guess. So it's a virtual sneaker. It's not like they're sending a pair of Nikes out to your house or something. And that costs right now a minimum of around 12 Sol. So that with today's prices, that's $1,200. So already that's a lot of people out the game, right? Most people don't necessarily have $1,200 to put to something like this. And
wait, hold on. Did you say it's $1,200 just to get started? That's way more than Axie.
Basically, exactly.
Oh
well,
goodness.
It's also because the price of it has kind of gone up over time. It's going to become less, and they're going to give the ability to do it for free, I believe. But you'll be able to like rent someone else's sneakers, basically. So kind of how Axie, it had this whole ecosystem of people lending it.
Hold on a second. You're gonna rent someone's sneakers?
Yeah. But it's like
only
a virtual
in the
pair.
Metaverse. Only in the metaverse.
Exactly. Yeah. So the way it works, you basically have to pick one of these 4 pairs of sneakers. One's for walking, one's for running, one's jogging, and one's like a hybrid. And there's all these gaming mechanics made for each of them. The one of them, is walking. So if you go too fast, it doesn't count towards your points or whatever. So just think of a game that you're playing, but you're actually playing it in real life. And the good thing here is actually something positive, right? Like you're moving, which is good for you or whatever. And depending on how much you walk, the more you earn or whatever. So that's kind of like the high level how it works. There's all these kind of like gaming mechanics though, right? Like you breed, it's the equivalent of like breeding the sneakers. Like there's these things, there's like bonuses, and you can like over time the sneakers wear down, so you kind of have to like boost them up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's all these like interesting gaming mechanics, right? But this is my high level take, right? So my high level take is I love the idea. I think it's overall an interesting idea. Definitely not ready for the masses just yet. It's definitely getting regular people interested in crypto, which is a generally positive thing. But my overall take on it is kind of an elaborate, like the Ponzi-nomics of this are definitely there. Like you're only going to be able to make money long term. You're only going to be able to make money while other people keep coming in the game, which is, again, a bigger philosophical question. Is that all of money? Is that all of value? But in this case, I think the fact you're getting money in their token, which is unlimited supply, I think it's very likely that the value of that is going to drop significantly, the way that what happened to Axie Infinity as well. So that doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean they're trying to rug anyone. It doesn't mean they're like doing something terrible. It just means in its current form, I think there's a limited, there's a lot of people that will get into it and then realize later, oh, okay, I'm not making the money I did before, and probably stop playing. So now the question is, can they create more things and more reasons for people to stay in that ecosystem? Does it become a fun enough game, like we've talked about before, for them to keep doing it? Do they gain from walking with their dog and going for a run that it keeps people paying and into that ecosystem? The same way I pay for an Aura ring MyFitnessPal Plus or whatever it's called, and all those other things that I actually get some value out of.
Hold on a second. Quick question: is there motivation to get people more fit? Is that the overarching theme here, or is it something else?
I don't know. I'm not too sure. That's a good question. I'm sure, like, it's a part of it. Like, from what I can see, the people, like, the way that they've set this thing up, there's actually quite a long vesting schedule, like, compared to other crypto projects. So they're not like, hey, tomorrow we're gonna just run away with it. Seems like, from what I've read. I'm sure when they were trying to create this, and they were like, oh, we want to create this thing, maybe that is a part of the motivation. But the question I always ask you guys on this is, does it need to be crypto, or could this just be something else? So could this be like Web 2? Could it be an app on the iPhone? Because right now it is an app on the iPhone or Android, but it has a back end that is working in the Solana ecosystem.
You're gonna laugh really hard here. I just googled Move2Earn. You want to know what the first result is? It's from the Vietnamese English newspaper VN Express. And the article headline is Vietnamese people embrace Move2Earn crypto trend.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounds like to me that there's going to be similar scholar situations like with Axie, where somebody like me or Jack is going to have a stable of people in the Southeast Asia just walking around the country earning the STEPN coin or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. So what I would say, the cynical side of me is saying, okay, this is just another elaborate Ponzi, right? Like, there's all these gaming mechanics, and eventually it just it crumbles. The flip side is saying, okay, if things are ever going to get out to masses the way we all talk about, these are the sort of things that are worth experimenting with, right? And the people who are behind it, let's assume that their intention isn't completely just to rug the whole world.
Right.
If that is the case, then it's a worthwhile experiment.
I don't think it is. I do not think it is.
I agree. And so that is kind of, and the other thing I kind of wanted to bring up as a question is, one, does this need to be crypto? So my opinion is, no, it doesn't have to be crypto. Right now, my health insurance company, Oscar, which is not my favorite thing, but that's what I'm self-employed at, what I can afford. Every day I can sync my steps in the app, and I get a reward of like $1 a day or something like that. And after doing it for 180 days, I got like an Amazon gift card, right? So that, if you think about it from their point of view, if I'm going for a run or walk every day, that I'm less likely to use their services, and they save money in the long run. So that is, if you think about it from that point of view, there are use cases like those sort of companies could fund stuff like this. The other area is, like, I'm wearing an Aura ring right now, which tracks my sleep. I think Jack's got one of these as well. I've used Levels in the past, which is a glucose monitor. There's all these different apps that are already trying to incentivize you to do positive things. This could potentially be funded, or one of these companies could be doing something like this, and it would probably be a worthwhile pursuit for them. Oh, that's
right. If Nike did this, no one would bat an eyelash, right?
Exactly.
To your point, there is, I mean, the joke I was making about me and Jack having a stable of people working for us. Right now, you can run for somebody for $4 a day for a half an hour of jogging. Like, you do it for them so they earn. I mean, there is that dystopian part of it, but to your point, if this was Nike, no one's batting an eyelid. It's and to your original question, does this have to be crypto? But the other part I liked here that I saw from this article, I love your comments on it because I have no idea what this really means. But it says, unlike an Axie and some of these other crypto first games, you know, it combines the real world, kind of like how Pokemon Go did. So that's nice. You get the real world interaction. There's a little bit of community. I guess that's already an Axie, and social communication. It really just sounds like Axie plus some Pokemon Go and some fitness stuff mixed in. I don't know if that's about right.
Yeah, maybe. And the same way Axie sounded like Pokemon plus, like, you know, crypto buzzwords or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, maybe that's all it is. Jack, I'm curious to get your take, because I could see your face there. I'm curious what you think.
You're noodling.
I don't know if you said it or not, but it's built on Solana, right? The base layer of this is built on Solana, and so their token is like a Solana native token, I'm assuming, built as like a proxy. So I think there's something interesting about like customer acquisition on a per chain basis. You could see something like this being interesting. And we all know Solana is like actually, I don't actually know the company structure of Solana, but I'm assuming there is money to recruit customers, and it's thought about in a different way than a decentralized blockchain, right? There's a LLC.
Yeah, that's a great
responsible for
That's
Solana.
a great point. And I know that they had like a fund which was helping projects get off the ground to incentivize stuff like this. I don't know if they actually funded any of this, but that's a good point to bring up.
Yeah, and I think that could, like if you think about like, I just started watching that the Uber like thing with Gordon Levitt,
super pumped,
yeah. And I guess this is recency bias of just watching that show, but like thinking about like once we get somebody to ride twice, they're in, right? So what you can, I don't know how closely they're coordinating with Solana, but to me it kind of makes sense, like to show off the value prop of Solana and like crypto in general. It's like being able to move money around quickly. Like you could see the logic behind like using something like that as a really smart way to onboard people. It doesn't feel like you're gambling. And what will a crypto exchange pay to get a customer? $100, $200, $500?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
whatever
if everybody
it is,
earns that,
we can lower the cost of acquisition. Whatever it is.
Listen to earn.
Yeah, listen to earn. That's a great idea. But yeah, Jack, that's a great point. And it was kind of to my point earlier around, does this need to be crypto? And the other question I always ask is, where's the money coming from? So in contrast to this, let's use other examples. So DeFi, the thing that has clicked for me, as I've mentioned many times on the pod, was there's three parties, a user, if I've got 10 grand sitting in an account, Chase lends that out and earns 7% and gives me 0 pretty much. Whereas with DeFi, I could see directly, there's two of us, we took one middleman out, and that same pie is now split by 2 versus 3. That is why there's money to be made there. And it seems sustainable for that reason, or at least legitimate. The other area is what you just mentioned there, which is incentive based. So a lot of these DeFi platforms, you can liken the early rewards, the airdrops, etc., or even the play to earn stuff here, similar to like the Lyft or Uber referral bonus, where you get $15 to invite your friend. That was the equivalent of Lyft and Uber's marketing budget or affiliate budget going to you, the user, not a random influencer or email newsletter or whatever else they were using. So those two, to me, I'm like, I can see where the money's coming from. In this case here, that's kind of where it falls down for me, which is the money is coming from, this big bucket of money they've got to distribute. But crucially, they're paying in a token that is inflationary forever, basically. And that, again, on its own, isn't necessarily just a problem. The way that Nat kind of describes it, I think I've got a tweet that he wrote here. He basically said, I think we're entering a crypto gaming season, kind of like the NFT season last year. Keep in mind, no one has really figured out how to escape the Ponzi-nomic flywheel without a big correction. That's the phrase, right? The Ponzi-nomic flywheel. The hotter something is and the faster it's growing, the worse it might be. Happen to Axie, it will happen to STEPN. Just make sure you know what game you're playing. And Nat's then he's got a little bit
crypto newsletter. Google that. We should put in the show notes because Nat is absolutely smashing
I'll share that. It was a great write-up. But yeah, go on, Jack.
I was just going to say one other thing, like escaping the Ponzi-nomics, I think there's a couple just high-level ideas, like their white paper, and I just was like skimmed through it a second ago. They're talking about like getting people outside and walking instead of taking the car, or emission reduction, things of that nature. So it feels like one way you could get fresh capital into that system is like if you're a brand and you want to sponsor, you want to put money into like getting people moving, like put your money where your mouth is type stuff. If you're, Nike buys 10 million, $100 million of tokens. And like, I think there's ways in which like, if you can legitimize something around a mission, you can bring fresh capital into it in a way that's like almost like a philanthropic thing, but it doesn't, like it goes directly to the people participating in the thing, and walking is like a pretty measurable thing. And they seem to have gotten around the gaming of it. Like this GPS tracked, you can't stick it on your dog and, let your dog run whatever. But I think things like that, like as it matures, partnerships and like more more closely aligned mission with like bringing people into it. And it's not necessarily about like, you know, building the, like adding features. It's more about like getting people aligned under this story.
Did Nat mention any of like potential sponsorships as like?
I didn't see him write that in his piece, but that was kind of the area that I thought could make sense, because that
makes the most sense,
money
right?
is a bucket of money that is not, the return is people knowing your brand. So there's no return needed. Similarly, the health care provider, or like, I hate to even use this example, but like the government basically, right? Or, you know, the NHS, let's say in the UK, like not very sexy at all, but the same way they've got incentive programs and subsidies for other companies, the same way Tesla and other, was it Tesla or SpaceX, or like, you know, climate or environmental focused companies have incentives from government money. Those are all the things that used for positive things like exercise, for sleep, like I could see, like imagine Oura Ring had this, or 8 Sleep, two of the more leading kind of like fitness sleep companies. Like there's so much they could do with that. Like, and again, you can verify that because you have to wear it, right? You're already wearing it. So they could bring in stuff like this. So that's why I didn't want to completely dismiss it as a massive Ponzi, because I think it's actually a very interesting
actually listen to you guys
idea.
explain it. I think that the real world element, as we've talked in the past about, you know, the Sailor's whole point about why Bitcoin is so resilient. Hate to bring it back to Sailor, but it's because it's got the real world element, right? That proof of work, the necessity of electricity. By combining the real world, all roads lead to. Oh my God! I just listened to his Lex Friedman one. I need to listen
quick
to that tangent here. Quick tangent, because he had a new phraseology for Bitcoin that I never heard before. He said the goal of Bitcoin was to create a $1 billion block of energy in cyberspace that can move at the speed of light. I'm like, oh my God! The message has just been distilled, right? It's like he just keeps distilling it. You know when you're making a nice sauce, like a reduction, he just keeps making the sauce and the flavors just keep getting stronger and stronger. Every time he goes on one of these 3 to 4 hour podcasts, it just gets better. It just gets better. He's like fine wine. It just gets better and better. All right, that was my tangent. The reason I bring it up is because
Sailor Fest.
The real world stuff you guys mentioned, I think that is a big difference. And I know there's a lot of talk of like, listen, we already live our lives digitally, but this real world stuff, man, it makes it STEPN. If it can combine with any of these, do a partnership. Just go to Nike, go to Adidas. Let's make this happen, right? Let's make the health happen.
McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's. Go to Mickey D's.
Get a bonus when you go to McDonald's to redeem.
Because at the end of the day, it's what Bilal, you were saying. It's like, they have attention, right? This is the running theme in our podcast. They have attention right now. You can do anything with that. You can partner with athletic brands and health conscious organizations to leverage that attention.
And then Trung, just to add to what you just said there, from what Nat said, this is the most excited non-crypto people have been in his circle about a project, including his wife, his wife's friends. Like they're literally now in a WhatsApp group or some sort of group chat, kind of sharing with each other. Like, I did this today. This is a way to boost your points.
Right? People have been talking about steps for like this is it's like been a 15-year thing where I guess when the first Fitbits came out, I was like, oh, did you get your 10,000 steps? Right? Like you challenge people.
But adding that gaming element. So even for me, I still use like a Fitbit, and I'm like 9,722. I'm just gonna do to get to 10K because I'm a human being, right? So you're trying to hit that bonus. But you know, like it's, if you just think of NFTs last year, like this is why I think it's interesting comparison. Look, don't get me wrong. I think majority of the reason NFTs were booming last year, especially, was because most people were trying to make money. They're trying to flip them, whatever, of course. At the same time, once I got into doing it a little bit, how much fun was that? Yeah, like me, I'm texting Jack, and Jack's like, "Oh yeah, check out this rarity trait," and then I'm in Tom Osmond's Discord with all these random fools in the best possible use of the word fool, including myself in that, being like, "Oh, look at this new drop," and blah blah blah. Like it was a game. Obviously, a massive incentive, like I said, was related to the money making, but that's not necessarily terrible thing on its own. Like at the end of the day, money is an incentive that moves people towards something. So if that means we can use it for not just flipping a JPEG, but actually, getting people together, going for a walk, going for a run together, whatever, that isn't necessarily a terrible thing. So any other summarized thoughts from you guys before we move on to the next one? But I think it's an interesting idea for sure.
No, I think what you just said is
check back in on it in a few weeks.
Yeah, I think I would like to try it. So if anyone has an activation code, I texted Nat to see if he has one, but I haven't heard back yet. So Nat, if you're listening, send me a text back, and it would be cool if we all want to try it out. We could report back on it in a few weeks or something like that. All right, boys, let's move on to the next one. Moonbirds NFTs. This was the first project in a long while that I saw get this much heat. Jack, I'll pass it over to you. I know you know a lot more about this world than I do. But just to tee it up, for people who don't know, this is Kevin Rose's project, right?
Yeah, so Kevin Rose of the Proof podcast. Is that what the podcast called?
I think it's Modern Finance, but Proof Collective is the NFT, is like the community
it's a group
or something
that they made, right? Yeah, Proof Collective
so
is
Modern
community.
Finance, and Bilal, you probably know more about Kevin Rose's
do you know
background.
what? You're right. He does have another NFT podcast, which might be called Proof. You're right. Yeah.
I believe so, yeah. So I was introduced, I think, to Kevin Rose through you, Bilal. Like I think he's a columnist at some big...
He was the founder of Dig.
Dig, yeah. So internet aggregator Dig. Like a peer to Reddit.
And he, Web 2 guy, kind of a legend. Like he
went to work at Google, super tight with Tim Ferriss.
Yeah. And he's really, really good. He's an incredible investor. Like arguably he's been a better investor than founder, though I think he's a really great product person. He really, like hearing him speak about it, he's a really, really smart dude. Yeah. So yeah, back to you.
Awesome. Good context. So his first NFT project, and he was in the NFT world way back when we first started talking about this. Like he's talking about Xcopy and Bored Apes and whatever else, like back at the very beginning of when this stuff was becoming popular. So he's had his finger on the pulse of it for a long time. Obviously been putting out media for a couple of years on NFTs. And then I believe late last year or early this year, he launched what was called a Proof Pass, which is I think 1,000. It's like a closed member Discord. I think he sold them for 2.5 ETH. So it's you would have access to, I believe, him and his team. I don't have one, so I don't know exactly what that entails, but the Proof Pass was 1,000 people, or at least 1,000 NFTs, which created a private community, which I assume they're in there talking about what's happening, what's coming next, what they think are good investments, I'm sure with disclaimers, etc.
I think it also would give you, sorry, you might have been about to say this, but I think it also gave you access to the future NFTs. Like there was an allocation for the members or something like that.
Yeah. So it's just like a lot of NFT roadmaps, like utility to be determined, like events coming up, and the things, the projects we develop from here on out, like Proof members will have access to those things on favorable terms. So then this collection's called Moonbirds that we're going to talk about, which mirrors the mechanic of CryptoPunks, Bored Apes. Is 10,000 unique avatars that you're going to see all over Twitter. If you're listening to this, I'm sure you've already seen this and you may even know more than I do about it. But each pass, I believe, gave you access to Mint 2. So that was, I guess, 2,000 was spoken for through the original Proof Pass pre-sale. Let me actually rewind one piece that I missed out. So those Proof Passes that sold for 2.5 Ethereum back when they minted, and now on the secondary market, I believe for 80, 90 Ethereum. The floor price.
I think it even went up to 100 or something like that.
Yeah, so that's 300 grand to join this thing. And those passes give you access to 2 of these Moonbirds, which again minted for 2.5 Ethereum. So there was 2,000 allocated for members of Proof, and then I believe half of the rest of the supply was raffled off. So they had a whitelist component where you just put your name down, and you found out a couple of days before the mint if you were whitelisted, which means your address is put into the contract, so you guaranteed one of these things. So they minted for 2.5 Ethereum, obviously sold out instantly. So that's what I think 20 mil. Let me do the math on that quick. So
there's been
raised.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I thought while you're looking at numbers, I know that there's been hundreds of millions in secondary sales. Yeah. It looks like almost 300 million.
That's wild.
So
crazy.
So the secondary market, they're entitled to 5% of the resales. Right now, the secondary volume is 76,900 Ethereum in secondary sales. So let me see that.
It's 200 plus.
6,900. Even with Ethereum at 3,000, that's
crazy.
That's 230 mil. At 5% of that, that's their take on the royalties. And I think the speculation that I've seen is a lot of new money came into the ecosystem with this launch, because I think Kevin's reputation and like the Web2 world that maybe he's been waiting on the sidelines and didn't want to spend $100,000 buying into something by Mooncat 975. Like this
we always go back to that person. Well, I think Gary V was in the Proof Collective too. So good old Gary.
Yeah.
Gary's out here.
I think him and Gary are old school Web2 South by Southwest friends. And then Jack, I was just going to read, I think I sent this to you guys in a DM. This guy, Mark, I can't read something, Mark.eth on Twitter. He said Proof has been a wild ride. Purchase passed in December for 1 ETH. Now it's worth 100 ETH. In addition to that, we got these airdrops. Heart You Emote, 2 ETH, Grails 9 ETH, 2 Moonbirds 40 ETH plus 35 ETH. 1 ETH to 186 ETH in 4 months. That's Tom Osborne levels of gains there.
How many people got that though? 1,000, 2,000?
Yeah.
I guess the people that were early.
Wow, 1,000 NFTs, not 1,000 people. I'm sure that people had multiple.
Yeah. So is there some blowback here of insider-ishness? Is this kind of the narrative?
I think the only blowback that I've seen is more which is maybe counterintuitive, because people talk about projects like sucking liquidity out of the rest of the market. But as we just mentioned, this is a lot of new money, I think. And a lot of people who have been maybe consuming all of this stuff for a long time, but the second wave of educated, in inverted commas, consumers here. So I think as far as NFT projects go, it's maybe the most sophisticated in terms of how much legal due diligence has been done and the people that are behind it, things of that nature. And I think that just unlocked a new type of person. Not really much to say beyond that, because I haven't been a part of any of those groups and I did not participate. I was going to preface the entire section here with just I've just cooled off on a lot of that stuff because I'm just heads down building and trying to
Hold on, Jack. Let's say more. I think this is worth teasing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you more about this as well. Yeah.
So you, as our listeners know, Jack Butcher, circa May 2021, was shoulder deep in the NFT muck. So give us an idea. We know that you went clicks to bricks when you sold some apes, bought a home. It's very, very prudent financial move in hindsight. Where are you now mentally with NFTs, and what are you digging your head down for? Let the audience know what's up.
I think the concept still massively resonates with me. I just have realized that my ability to speculate on the day-to-day market of NFTs and be proud of my output as a business owner is definitely not consistent with where I'd like it to be. So while I might be missing out on 100 Ethereum in proof gains over the course of 6 months, I like to think that the compounding benefits from focusing on the stuff that I can control is outweighs that, especially having had the experience that I had, right?
You've been there.
Yeah, and it's just like it's kind of a tricky psychological game. There's like nothing really is enough in that scenario, and you just keep resetting the boundaries, and your risk tolerance just goes bananas. And honestly, like at this point in my career personally, like there are a lot of attractive things outside of like staring at OpenSea all day, regardless of the financial upside associated with it. So just had to like shut it out, which was not particularly easy to do in the beginning, and you still like wince a little bit when you see certain things, but overall I think good decision.
I'm 100% on board with you, minus the part where I actually got the big winning, but I get what you're saying. And maybe can you share a little bit what you're going deep on, or is this going to be a later reveal? So some of the visualized value NFT stuff is like some infrastructure stuff for that isn't going to follow the same mechanics as like, you have to have this enormously hyped up launch and things of that nature. So like some tooling there, just like maybe going back to some foundational stuff. Got a good podcast recommendation. I think it just came out. Naval interviewed Vitalik. It's a 2-part podcast. I saw that. I was on Long Drive. I did to listen list.
I haven't listened yet.
Yeah, and I think some of that stuff is inspiring in terms of like, you can really find yourself getting caught up in like the fashions of the moment and maybe miss some of the like amazing fundamentals and the like the reason why a lot of this stuff is happening. So just zooming out a little bit, get back to like producing original stuff myself, which last few weeks I've been gearing back into a lot. And just like I'm kind of I have like
all or nothing. You're
tendency
all or nothing.
To go all the way in or not at all, and that's
that's
definitely just switching back in the other direction. So
I could sense it even just from like I don't know enough, but like the amount of stuff you even put in like Instagram, like the design stuff, right? Like on visualized value, has it ramped up quite a bit in the last few weeks? Because I've been seeing it more anyway. And that's like taking my foot off the gas on that ever was just a dumb idea, right? It's like when you have something that works that way.
It's such dude, you are doing the opposite of your famous graph. Like, this is pointless. You're just you're like, oh, I'm done, right? Like, this is the best it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
Nothing else will compound from here. Like, that's what you basically did when you effed off and did Bored Apes for a year.
And there was like elements of, I think that experience that I think helps produce better work on the visualized value side. So nothing is lost in terms of like, it's new material to work with, as it were.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I'm happy that you're off the NFTs a little bit. Like, I'll share this because now when you put something out there, I won't feel bad that I'm never, ever going to purchase it and miss out on 1,000x gains. Zero.
Yeah.
Zero
we'll see.
alpha.
I still dabble, but not with any, not with any meaningful. Also, another nod, like the nouns thing that we talked about. That's like the one NFT project that I'm like.
Oh yeah, somebody cut that video of us. That was amazing, man.
Yeah, from a philosophical perspective, that's like interesting to me rather than the the endless chase and scalping.
Yeah,
it's funny. The other like realization I've had is like the idea of community. It does stand in a little bit of we like to use buzzwords, right? Like community is this thing that people have attached to the idea of a collection of NFTs. And as that collection gets more popular, it gets more liquid, and the turnover of participants in the community increases. So there's like this really weird tension between like, is this community or is this just number go up and we all enjoy number going up? And it's chicken and egg, and like that stuff is very fascinating to me. And it definitely resonates that you can like, once you've found product market fit for a aesthetic or an idea, or like you've brought people together around this thing, that you can turn that into something valuable. but it also like just creates these short feedback loops that for me personally are detrimental to the stuff that I know I should be focusing on. So it's taken a bit of discipline to wean off it, but stay tuned. I'll let you know about that. So far, it's been going a bit better.
Good. That's good to hear.
That's great, man. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I could sense it a little bit. I think from even the previous conversations we've had about like how what happened last year for a lot of people involved, it distorted everyone's sense of work essentially. Like even for me as well, on a different scale or different angle. And it just becomes quite distracting, and sometimes you have to like rejig yourself in a certain direction. And with Trung, I know we were saying early in the year when there were huge drops in stocks, and I know you're quite exposed to a lot of these growth stocks. Yeah, it does give you a kick. And on the flip side, there's the opposite. When things are just going swimmingly well on a number on a screen, it just magically keeps going up. It's very difficult psychologically to deal with that. And the bigger question is, I've talked a little bit about this before, is the kind of hunger you have not having anything or much to when you do get to a certain level of comfort. That is something I still honestly, I still struggle with that even today. So
I'll bring this up. So we didn't do the meme of the week. And I think this is very relevant for everything you said, Bilal, because so the meme for the listeners is from Wall Street Memes, who kindly enough credited his inspiration of this for a tweet I put up. But he says the tweet is of Logan Roy from Succession. And it's a scene where he asked his son, Roman Roy, played by Kieran McCulkin, if he's a sicko, because he had accidentally sent his dad a dick pic. Incredible scene, right? Yeah,
I remember that, yeah.
But then Wall Street Memes writes, hilarious. He writes, my accountant, after seeing that I placed 89,511 trades just to make a $38 profit. And then it's just a line, are you a sicko? But the reason, two reasons I bring that up. Number one is we didn't do meme of the week. I forgot to do that. But the second thing is like you said, Bilal, I was like, you can literally be in the mix doing all these wild things, but there's ultimately really no compounding going on, right? And we've talked about it before, unless you're the best of the best of the best of the best, if you're day trading, you're getting slaughtered. Like you will get slaughtered, right? So, I mean, it's amazing.
I will say, Trung, sorry, just to add though, I do think even if you didn't lose your house last year, like you still probably learned quite a significant amount playing around with that stuff. I don't think it's just the money. Of course, like, everyone wants to make money, but like that got me into so many things, like setting up a MetaMask wallet, exploring different ecosystems, learning about NFTs, etc. And I think like that's where some of the compounding can happen, is the interest. It opens up a doorway for you to go. And now some of those people, like even Nat, we talked about him, like he went and he's now writing about this every week. He's got a new newsletter. He's also been working. He taught himself like Solidity, I think. And so it's just like those things I think can.
Yeah, Nat's a beast, man.
He is a beast. But I 100% agree. If you're only there just to flip it and make a couple grand or 100 grand, whatever, like that isn't always going to be enough to keep it going. And it's kind of the bigger question I was saying earlier around like what keeps you motivated in the first place. Do you know what I mean? So that even for me, I've got to the point where it's like money is very difficult for me to be motivated by just money, because it's kind of boring after a while without sounding like an idiot. So anyway, I think that was a good little philosophical discussion. Thanks for sharing that, Jack. Good to see you grinding out with that stuff again.
VV, get ready for it. Don't worry, people. We're not getting, me and Bilal aren't getting whitelisted. The Jack's VV project is for the people. There's no favoritism here.
That's true.
But just send us something in the DM, brother. No.
Yeah, just let us know on the side. Yeah.
No, I'm playing. All right, what's next? All
right, we got a next couple now. Just to wrap us up, CNN and Netflix. Trung, over to you, our resident journalist with lowercase j. He doesn't like to be called a journalist, but what's going on with CNN Plus, man? What the hell happened here?
Okay, so CNN Plus was the streaming service for the news website. The news channel. Obviously, we all know CNN. So CNN is still like an anchor for the cable news business, right? It's like one of the big 3 or 4, MSNBC, Fox, and a lot of criticism in recent years, particularly during the Trump administration, when they basically were just an outrage machine. And since Trump has left, cable news in general has seen a big dip in viewership. Just not everybody is stuck on every word of the president of the United States anymore. But CNN Plus was like every other media company, was CNN's effort to go into streaming. They knew that the cable cash cow was going to go away, right? So there's two pieces to the CNN Plus launch. So the failure of it, or the perceived failure of it, because I'm sure you guys have seen some of the memes that have been going around, right? Like there's been a multiple news pieces about CNN Plus not really hitting their numbers. So a McKinsey consultant had told CNN Plus that they should have 2 million subscribers this year. They're currently at 150,000, and I think only 10,000 people, or 10 to 20, use the app like on a daily basis. So just not good. Just as a point of reference, how far they are from the tops is Disney Plus has 100 plus million subscribers. Netflix has 220 million subscribers. Not to say that they have to be that, but those are the tops.
What's the value proposition beyond watching CNN?
So they did a couple of things. So CNN is like, okay, we can't just be live news, right? Like they had to find a wedge, because nobody really wants to subscribe to a streaming service for live news. I mean, that's eventually probably what's going to happen. But if you want live news, they're not going to cannibalize their 24/7 news network. So what they did was they said, okay, what are like really popular kind of shows on other networks that aren't necessarily scripted, right? So like the home gardening network, it does pretty well. And a lot of that content online does well. Travel shows do well.
Yeah, didn't they have Anthony Bourdain, wasn't it?
Well, they had it for CNN.
For CNN, okay, yeah.
But they tried to do some similar things, right? They tried to get these personalities, which, I mean, like Professor Scott Galloway was one of the big gets they got for CNN Plus. And I like a lot of what Scott Galloway does, but now he's involved in this, and you know how people make fun of Galloway's bets and ideas and how often wrong he is. He's also been right. Like, for example, WeWork, but now it just looks like another feather in him, like picking a streaming service, and it just completely failing. They also got like some personalities from I think NPR's one of NPR's biggest personalities left to go to CNN Plus. But yeah, to answer your question, Jack, is like they weren't going to do the 24 hours news coverage. They needed a wedge as an option to build an off-ramp, right, into the streaming world, because everybody knows it's coming. But that met with the fact that there is subscriber fatigue, clearly, and maybe their offering just straight up sucks. I haven't seen a single piece of content from CNN Plus that has hit the consciousness, right? I think Anderson Cooper has a show on there, but nothing, right? I think they've spent $300 million in total. They were planning to spend $1 billion over 4 years to build it. So Trunk,
you might have said this, but how long has it been around now?
I think less than a month.
That's crazy. Yeah, because I thought it just got announced. It's already been canned.
Yeah,
we'll do it for $100 million each. We'll go on CNN Plus.
Dude, I guarantee you we get a bigger digital audience than they would. There's no question in my mind. But dude, they put like $50 million in marketing. So right now they're pausing marketing spend. But there's another piece to the puzzle. So on top of the fact that there's clearly subscriber fatigue to streaming services, and then on top of the fact that the content itself might just straight up suck. I don't know. I'm not watching. I think that's a big problem. It has a Quibi vibe, right? You remember when Quibi came out, the short video app that spent $2 billion on content that turns out nobody wants? The other part of it is that there's this big merger between Time Warner, which owns CNN, and Discovery. And now there's battles. There's battles within these organizations about, like, Time Warner's like, well, we have HBO Max and we want to put everything into that app to make it a true Netflix competitor, right? Like, why are we going to be under the same umbrella and have CNN Plus as literally taking away a potential subscriber for us or making people have that decision? So there's a lot of like internal politicking going on, and CNN Plus kind of rushed it out the door before Time Warner and Discovery fully merged, because they're like, we might just get axed, or they might just totally sunset this. So they rush it out the door before Discovery and Time Warner happens. But now it looks like they're just going to get bundled into HBO Max anyways. And then the network, Jeff Zucker, which was CNN's head for the last 9 years, he left or had to leave 2 months ago. And he had been involved a lot with CNN Plus's launch, but he had to leave because he was involved in some he had a relationship, a consensual relationship at CNN with an employee, but he didn't disclose it. And then he had to leave. So a lot of politics.
Sounds familiar. Sounds like
exactly,
this happened
right?
a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, not the first time. So CNN Plus, there's CNN Plus just being a complete disaster situation here. A lot of people at CNN Plus are like, well, 150,000 is not that bad. Like we think we're on pace. So maybe they are. I don't know. I think the cultural zeitgeist thing feels so much like Quibi, right? Quibi came out at the start of the pandemic. Everybody's at home. So Quibi made one technological mistake, which was that they didn't allow anything on TV, right? Everything had to be on the phone. It's like, well, that's completely useless because your pitch was that people were going to watch you on the bus or, on the shitter at work. But like everybody's at home now, they're going to watch TV and you're not going to give them that. So technological mistake, but also massive creative mistake. Jeffrey Katzenberg, obviously former head of, I believe, Disney, or one of the big studios, but he's a monster. But this is not how 2022 works anymore. I'm going to throw it to you guys on this, but like Quibi's failure was you can't tell people what they want, right? This is why TikTok, which is a short form video app on mobile, exploded. You allow people to be infinitely creative, and then the market basically, and the market being people's attention, and this amazing AI that TikTok has, feeds them what they want. So CNN was another top-down attempt at trying to break through. And we're obviously on the other scale, boys. We just create great content. We let the market come. Let the market come this way.
That's it.
So any thoughts there?
No, I mean, I think the way you described it there, top down versus, the TikTok, like the wider platform, like YouTube is in that boat too. It's just interesting though, because the format itself, like if you use Instagram Reels versus TikTok, like TikTok is still so much better. Like it's so crazy how much better the algorithm works. And obviously, like, Instagram is following TikTok. TikTok is just fun because they've added the music element and all that sort of stuff. So it's really interesting to see like how, if you go from Facebook to Instagram to Snapchat, adding stories, and then everyone ripping off stories. Yeah. Now with TikTok, we've got Reels, YouTube's got Shorts or whatever. So yeah, it's just this constant evolution. I will say their top-down approach can work. It just didn't work for like Quibi. Like you could say HBO or
right.
Netflix.
Well,
they
HBO
have that.
is super, super high quality, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that comes from more like the TV world, or TV movie traditional world. And at the same time, I have no idea about HBO's like business, how it actually works, if it's profitable or whatever. But
it was a monster. It was an absolute monster cable business.
Yeah, even now though, because I know forever it was, but just like even now in today's age,
it's much more difficult because it's under the Time Warner umbrella, and like their content is being diluted. Like the app now, like you'll get some of this random content that
they did HBO owns, right? Now or whatever,
exactly.
Go or whatever.
So let me add the backdrop which you had mentioned. So the CNN Plus news came out today about like there's just been leaks of news, so a lot of politicking, right? So I'm sure a lot of this is like he said, she said. But then on top of that, Netflix comes out today and says for the first time in its history, they lost subscribers in a quarter. So they lost 200 subscribers this quarter. But they expected to add 2.5. 200,000.
200,000. Okay.
That's like 10. It's like less than 1% of their subscriber base. But the whole point is like everything about them was predicated on growing.
Yeah.
And the problem obviously is that there's only 350 million people in America, right? It's like they're so penetrated for North America, which is the high dollar value, and North America, Canada too. Like in India, I think a Netflix user is paying less than $5, right? Fair enough, like relative to their thing. Speaking of India, our boy Patel just...
I was just going to say, he put out a hilarious tweet.
He's got one. Okay, this is the funniest. This should have been meme of the week, to be honest.
Yeah, let's do it.
But this one made me absolutely howl. God, he's so good, man. Hold on a second here. Oh, internet. All right, listeners, I'm going to read it. But so Netflix fell today 24% on the news that its subscriber is slowing for the first time ever. And Patel, oh my goodness. Here we go. He drops it. Oh, he has so many going right now. Oh my good. Okay,
what
here.
A beast.
Netflix stock down 20% after 1.4 billion people in India realize they can all share the same password.
Incredible.
So actually, let me allow your boy Trung Phan to pump his Netflix Bloomberg opinion article he wrote recently, if you guys don't mind. So Netflix, I wrote this article. Let me break it down for the listeners here. So Netflix, there's been some talk, right? So subscribers are basically slowing. What can we do next? How can we fix the business? So the article I wrote was that they could use their existing infrastructure to build a app network, like literally apps. And it's from a mobile analyst, Eric Seufert. I interviewed him for the article. But the TLDR of it is that people are like, Netflix should just do ads. They should have a free tier with ads, right? Bring more people into the ecosystem, help their subscriber growth, because we just talked about how bad the subscriber growth is. Maybe some of those free advertisers or free subscribers will eventually pay for the app. In the meantime, we'll just stick their face with ads. And the interesting thing about Netflix is they already have an amazing infrastructure for ads because they're personalization, right? They're feeding you already. I was just thinking that. Exactly. Yeah. Their recommendations for you are built on a profile of you as a viewer. They can already feed you ads. Like they have best in class personalization recommendations. So they have the infrastructure. 2 criticisms about that. Number one is, well, let me ask you, if Netflix had a free tier, would you be kind of annoyed? Because it feels premium, right? I'm paying $20. I don't want fucking ads.
Yeah, I think there's a psychological thing with the price point, right? Like, I'm like, oh, there's no ads. I'm paying. I'm happy to pay. The same way with Spotify, I pay, even though they do have a free ad-supported version.
But I don't know yet. 100%, right? Is like that. That's the reason. Is like it's a brand equity kind of thing. The other argument, which is what I wrote about, is from Eric Seufert, is basically they can use that infrastructure to build an app ecosystem. So they've already acquired 4 gaming developers in the past 6 months, and they're using all this attention and the fact they have 220 million. Sorry, guys, just burped. Plus subscribers to feed them mobile games, right? And Eric's argument is like, well, what you should actually do is you should just have Netflix branded apps for everything. Like have fitness apps within your mobile phone that's Netflix branded. And what you do is you use that personalization and recommendation engine. Like if you know somebody's watching a ton of fitness related content, well, get them to use the app, right? And then what that does is it also draws a lot of app developers to Netflix because customer acquisition is so hard in apps, especially after Apple changes privacy settings. So like Netflix could come in and be like, well, actually, Apple's not letting you get data from the users anymore across apps. We have it all. So come to us, make amazing apps, mobile gaming, health, cooking, whatever. And then we will swap in that you can use our data. We'll take a cut of any revenue you make from your apps. And then also you can be top of funnel for us to grow a subscriber base. That's one pitch. So
I think that gone.
Pretty interesting, right, Jack?
Pay to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Crypto solves everything. There you go. No, I have to say, I think Ben Thompson wrote about why they shouldn't do ads. I didn't read the full thing.
No, he said they should do ads, but then he came back the next one and said the brand equity argument against it.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Okay. I will say that I think it's a really interesting idea because if you think of just digital advertising, like you said, they've got all the personalization stuff pretty well, as good as anyone.
This is your realm.
I'd say, but what their targeting probably isn't as good as Facebook and Google in terms of Google and Facebook gets 90% of the internet's activity on their pixels because of
not
Google Analytics.
Not with Apple's privacy
that's true. Right? That's true. That's hurt them a lot. So
that's
maybe
the
90%.
Argument for Netflix.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah,
because they own first-party data. Amazon.
Well, I think in like episode 2 or 3, we predicted that like this was a prediction of ours, Amazon or Netflix, right? One of them, who's going to win the streaming was
Amazon Video. Yeah.
Amazon. A million over.
Exactly.
The good thing for Netflix, though, like you said, is advertisers will pay a huge premium to be alongside that premium content. If you compare that directly with YouTube, you can say right now YouTube made the better decision, right? Like they didn't go and try to make Game of Thrones equivalent or whatever, or like House of Cards. They did. I think they had 50 mil at one point where they were incentivizing creators and stuff like that. But it was always kind of like the YouTube main audience. But they've just sat back and said, all right, we'll just be the #1 video platform. Let people create the crazy long tail. And then we'll still have the Joe Rogan clips and the podcast. Now, I don't know how much I could talk about it, but I met someone, one of my friends is now working on YouTube podcasts, basically, right? So that's another whole vertical. They're now going to be incentivizing podcasts to get on there if they're not already. There's no reason they shouldn't be winning all of those categories. But the problem from the advertiser side has always been, oh, it's not premium enough. That's always been, if you speak to any of the people buying ads, like the CMO of a company, the reason they said, we don't believe in the internet, we call it internet, like I've said on the show, was because they always had this perception of YouTube being, you know, a cat on a skateboard.
Yeah.
You know, like that, those videos, they didn't think of, oh, Mr. Beast is got more views on his
Squid Game, the Squid Game knockoff, than Squid Game
his
itself.
remake on YouTube got more views than the whole of Netflix's show, which is, I think, the #1 show on Netflix or whatever in terms of viewership. So it's just an insane, if you just think of like scale, of course, he makes crazy money from ads and brand sponsorships, but the CPM, the cost per 1,000 impressions he can earn from that, is so much lower than a premium content network like Netflix or HBO or something like that. So it could actually work pretty well. It's a pretty smart idea. Be interesting. Or what about if they just did it in certain markets? Like, what if, to start off, like India would be a great market for them to do that. Because, like you said, everyone would have it there. So, yeah, that's a very interesting take. Anything else on Netflix before we cut out that one?
I just think they got the worst content library, honestly. Like, I think most of the stuff on Netflix is not great.
It's meant to be bad. It's turning into like, Ben Thompson, you mentioned him, and we should mention him again because I do want to talk about his pitch about Twitter. But it's like he talks about Netflix's job. What is Netflix's job? Is like it's turned into television, right? Which means there's a lot of just not shitty, but like useless background content, but that people kind of like, right? Like, you know, when you're cooking or hanging out, you just throw something on.
We're gonna throw the ultimatum on and what's this ridiculous dating show? Don't judge me, but yeah, they do have. No, you're right. That long tail is pretty poor. Like, honestly, on the movies on there, pretty weak. Like compared to
actually, to your point, you're better off just having the YouTube stuff in the background, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I do think they've still had massive shows. Like, you know, a lot of big shows are still on there. But I think we've got so used to them. They definitely don't have BritBox, though. Jack's favorite on Amazon Video, wherever you've got
Acorn, mate. I'm on Acorn.
Ridiculous. But yeah, interesting. I will say the last thing on the YouTube versus Netflix. I mean, I think that's been interesting to see now. YouTube ad revenue. YouTube revenue basically surpassing Netflix, right? Trung, is that right? From last quarter's news?
They're basically matched, yeah.
Yeah, on an annualized basis, if you extrapolate like last quarter or something like that. Which to me, like, that is mad. Like, I never thought it would get to that level.
It's mad. But it's like you said, it's scale, right? You have 2 billion people where the average revenue per user is whatever, $15, I guess, versus Netflix, which is 200 million subscribers. ARPU is like 15 or 10, $15, right? Totally different models. YouTube's winning. Full disclosure, people. Our boy Bilal used to work there, so do not take this as investment advice, all right? Pump in his bags.
Almost waiting for that stock split.
I think like YouTube model in the environment we're in and continue to like go deeper into just makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Like permissionless, let the market decide like where the attention goes. My dad was there for 4 weeks just now. That man watched so much YouTube. It's just absolutely outrageous.
Yo, yeah, it's insane. Thank God you had YouTube, right? Just for your own sanity.
Just like the browser. I'm not like a YouTube native consumer, but people who are literally like they turn the computer on, they go to YouTube.
I love it.
And then the younger generation.
Such an interesting behavior. YouTube first.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Well, also, if you think of the younger generation, not to sound like an old fogey myself, but like I'm only 34 in a month or whatever. But and I'm pretty savvy with that stuff. And I watch YouTube probably more than I watch Netflix, actually. I use YouTube every day. But like, if you listen to that Mr. Beast interview, obviously he's the #1 YouTuber in the world, but his age group And if you speak to any younger cousins or, you know, younger people you got in your family, they're watching is YouTube, like pretty much. And even if you think like YouTube Kids has the kids stuff down, it's so smart the way they've done it. It's just, I think the one big problem they've always had is the perception, you know, from the older people who are spending money, which they've managed to get in. And that's the other thing, you know, it's something that just takes time. And like, I see a lot of people on Twitter right now, like saying, oh, Google, Facebook, or any of these big tech companies, why do they have so many employees? This is why, because that takes 8 years of going to the same CMO who's got $100 or $200 million or $1 billion ad budget and knocking them down and saying, hey, come with us to VidCon and I'll come over here. Oh, look at these numbers.
Come to Wimbledon. Come to Wimbledon.
Yeah, literally,
come on.
yeah. And that's people don't realize that what goes into, like I saw someone tweet like WhatsApp sold for $19 billion and had 12 engineers. And so why does FTX have 200 or whatever the number was? And I was like, forget FTX. And they extrapolate that out to why does Google have 100,000 employees? Don't get me wrong, 20-30% of employees are probably chilling, but they don't understand like what goes into a real business. WhatsApp is not a real business when it got sold. It was just an app.
It was just a
and
pure app.
It had incredible user growth, but they didn't have revenue, they didn't have customers, they didn't have to, like, people don't understand all the different parts of a business when you get to that scale. And it's kind of, honestly, it's a little frustrating for me because I'm
in full
don't really
defense
write
mode
anything
right
on
now.
no, it's just kind of like, it's especially in the startup community, and I work with startups. I see the pros and cons of each. It's just, I think people can't wrap their head around the scale. Like when you've got 10 million advertisers spending thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions with you, there's a certain level of work that is not just a computer pressing a button for you. So anyway, rant over, but that is something that I've been
do not come
noticing
at
for a
me and
bit.
say YouTube has too many employees. You've never been there. You've never been in the bin. You know what it's like to watch YouTube content all day? For the listeners, the bin is where you watch like the not best stuff on YouTube, and it will scar your ass for life. But they make every employee do it, right?
Well, earlier they used to.
Okay.
Probably not
but
anymore.
now they have moderators, which are really literally destroying people's lives. But that's
100%.
Well, I mean, we don't have to go into that. But there's lawsuits around it. But Bilal, we better move on before.
Yeah, let's wrap it up because we've got 5 minutes or so. But good.
Let me do a super hardcore thing on Elon and Twitter.
Go on, let's do that real quick.
And people, the reason we're doing this is so we can put it in the thumbnail on YouTube so we can get some good search engine optimization. No, we're playing. But okay. Everything's moving so fast. Quick TLDR. Thursday, Elon offered $43 billion for Twitter. He already owned 9%. He needs to come up with $40 billion. On Saturday, Twitter adopted a poison pill. The TLDR on that is that if Elon owns 15% or more of the company, Elon or a group of other investors owns 15% or more, Twitter, by the corporate bylaws, can issue shares to the existing shareholders other than the individual that goes above 15, in this case, Elon, and they can dilute him down. So they issue shares at a massive discount. So actually, they did a little playback at Elon on the 420 joke. You know how much Elon loves 420. 420 actually is tomorrow. So I'm sure something crazy is going to happen when we drop this podcast, because 420 is Elon's favorite date because it's 69 days before his birthday. I don't know why I know that, but I do. So the setup is now this. The poison pill is in place. Poison pills are usually meant to force a hostile takeover individual to negotiate with the board. But it sounds like the board will reject Elon's offer of $54.20 a share. And the poison pill, this is how it works. If it does get enacted, you pay $210 and then you get $420 worth of Twitter stock. So they did the 420 also, just like F you back to him. But I want to lay out a couple scenarios here. As of today, April 19th, it looks like Elon's potential moves are the following. He can team up with a private equity firm, which are known to do big tech takeouts. Thoma Bravo and Apollo have been mentioned in the press as potential private equity partners. Silver Lake, which is already on the board of Twitter and is tried to help Elon take Tesla private, could be a potential partner, because Elon doesn't want to put a 40 bill. If he does, he'll have to take a margin loan, a loan out against his Tesla stock. And he's already apparently taken out 50 billion against his 160 Tesla stock. So that might not happen. The one I do like is this. Can he find another billionaire to team up with? A Larry Ellison, a Jeff Bezos. Could you imagine if Bezos and Elon teamed up because they cared enough about free speech?
Thiel has got to be on that list as well.
Thiel on the list.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Thiel, at least Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz potentially could help cobble up some funds. Elon might not even have to get to 40 billion. He could get to 51% ownership and agree to keep the company public. I think right now so Jack owns 2%, Elon owns 9%. A couple of the PE firms I mentioned, collectively, he could probably get to 20 to 30%. But if not, these are his moves. It's going to go to court, people. And I have been pretending to be a legal expert for a number of days now on the internet. I basically called my lawyer friend he went to Stanford, is a corporate lawyer. And I just told him to give me the dump. And then he's been messaging, man, Trung, just be careful, man. Like, don't just like put information out there.
Lawyers are always the most scared of writing anything. Yeah.
He's like, Trung, like, just be careful, bro. And I have been called out for some of my tweets about the legal situation, but 2 potential cases that we will hear about from Delaware Supreme Court, where a lot of U.S. companies are incorporated. So the first one is called Revlon versus McAndrews and Forbes. The TLDR on this one is that there's a hostile takeover from a grocery chain called Pantry. They tried to take over Revlon, the cosmetic maker. But what ended up happening was that at the end of that deal, it was determined that if Revlon put itself up for bidding, it had to give itself to the highest bidder, the highest price. Because right now the board's responsibility is multifold, right? They're like, can we execute our business plan? Or the shareholders going to be taken care of? Or our employees going to be taken care of? But in the event of a potential auction process, your job is to go to the highest bidder, and then other considerations or highest bidder, the probability the deal will close, and then the availability of funding. So a little bit of multifold, but basically you're trying to get the term is best shareholder value. The other Supreme Court case is called the Unicall standard. It was about an oil company, and in the 80s, both these happened in the 80s, but basically the Unicall standard says that Elon could potentially sue the board for not taking his offer and saying that they did it against the interests of the shareholders. And the last thing I'll add on this is I got some images. Actually, we don't need to pull them up, but if you look at Elon's older, some of his tweets in the last couple of days, you will notice he's going specifically after Twitter's board, because it looks like he's trying to set up a situation. He's notifying the world basically that the Twitter's board has zero ownership in Twitter. And David Sachs from All In Podcast on Friday was like just talking a ton about how these guys have no skin in the game, but it looks like they could be setting up to go after the board specifically, because otherwise it's going to be a pretty long battle to proxy the board, which means you vote the board members out. Twitter's board only allows a third of their board to be voted out every year. It would take Elon 2 to 3 years. He doesn't have that patience. So that's it. That's the follow-up. I feel like something crazy is going to happen next week that we should talk about anyways, but that was a quick 7-minute follow-up. Other than that, I'm good. Thanks, guys.
Elon,
good, mate.
Nice one, mate. Yeah, Elon still going in, man. He's not playing around. I did love him calling out the board by saying, if I buy Twitter, you won't be paid to be on the board or something like that. Or like this amount,
300K.
You'll be saved. You'll save this amount of money, whatever. Just so we can wrap it up. Thanks for the summary, Trung. 1 year of NIA, boys. Congratulations. We finally got to chat about it, just us three. I think when we talked about it over text, we said we would just basically reflect on it a little bit, just to market, just the way Jack says on the chain. This is on the Apple feed chain anyway. On the tube, exactly.
You actually know what, Bilal? Could we actually do this one next week? I'll tell you why. I want to give it a little bit more energy to kick off at the start. We'll start. How about this? Right. Listeners, we will reflect on our 1 year next week, so definitely come back for that.
And what I would love as well from people as well, if you wouldn't mind, comment either in
What's
YouTube.
Your favorite moment?
Or on Telegram. Yeah, tell us some of your favorite moments. And then the one thing that's actually something that we haven't done, basically, is understand what you want more of. Because I think we've got so much good feedback from people. And from my other podcasts, I know like the feedback you get is so broad that you can be like, oh, I don't like it when you do this. I don't like it when you do this. Do this length. That's not necessarily what is helpful. Like, what I'd love to know personally is like, what you like the most on the show and what you want more of, because that's what we'll keep doing. We'll keep giving you more of that stuff. We know everyone has different opinions and stuff that you'll like, so would love to hear. Let us know. You can tweet that to us right on YouTube comments below, or in Telegram. I'll put a little thing there too. I'd love to get your feedback.
Yeah, let's
on
ask
that.
We'll ask the Telegram.
We'll ask that in Telegram.
That's a great call, actually. That would be
that'd be helpful.
That could be half our episode next week. We'll just do a Q&A on 1 year. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's do that. Yeah, I know we're here in time. So thanks again for being here. We appreciate you guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, we appreciate you all, and we'll see you in the next episode next week. Cheers.